Welcome, dear viewers. Today, we turn the page to a new chapter, one not written in roses, but in cigarette smoke, dim stage lights, and the kind of silences that say more than words ever could. Picture this. A woman once celebrated across Hollywood, now labeled as past her prime. A young man the industry had all but overlooked, with no one willing to bet on him. But when these two met, they didn't just fall in love. They rewrote what love could look like on screen and off. This is more than just romance. It's proof that sometimes the most forgotten souls are the ones capable of reigniting each other in the most extraordinary way. In 1940, Lucille Ball, a struggling actress fighting against ageism, met Desi Arnaz, a 23-year-old Cuban musician brimming with wild charm and energy. On the set of Too Many Girls, these two seemingly mismatched souls sparked something electric. 3 months later, they eloped in Vegas. Lucy didn't just see a partner, she saw a fire, an energy she could shape, mold, and charge forward with. And Desi? He saw in Lucy a woman who never bowed to the system and was ready to build something that had never been done on television. Together, they created I Love Lucy, the first sitcom helmed by a woman, paving the way for modern TV. What about you? Would you bet on someone the world called washed up simply because you saw something no one else did? Success followed, but not peace. Lucy pushed through grueling production schedules, while Desi slipped into nightlife and temptation. They split, but their legacy, I Love Lucy, still echoes across generations. And Lucy wasn't alone. Long before her, another woman, more powerful, more iconic, made the same daring choice. Mary Pickford, the queen of silent films, co-founder of United Artists, put her faith in a younger, lesser-known man. She was 34, he was 22. She had already shaped American cinema, and he was just a handsome face with promise. Their 1937 wedding shocked Hollywood, but beneath the tabloids was a redemptive love story. Buddy didn't compete with Mary. He protected her. He managed her wealth, organized charity foundations, preserved her graceful image after the spotlight dimmed. He even negotiated the wartime sale of UA stock, keeping her dream studio alive. He never needed to shine, only to ensure her light never faded. George Brent, a young Irishman in Hollywood, handsome and intriguing, yet a gamble in every sense. When paired with Ruth Chatterton in The Rich Are Always With Us, he didn't just find a co-star. He encountered a two-time Oscar nominee whose aura could silence an entire set. They married shortly after filming. And from that point on, Ruth guided his every professional step, teaching him to choose roles wisely, negotiate contracts firmly, and step away from safe scripts to collaborate with Bette Davis in films like Jezebel. Though their marriage only lasted 2 years, Ruth's legacy remained in George's strategic thinking and the depth he brought to screen. No longer just a pretty face, but a serious artist. What do you think? If you saw the potential in someone, would you risk your reputation, emotions, and time to help them rise? Alan Ladd, the man with melancholic eyes and a modest stature, once worked as a carpenter before stepping onto Hollywood's doorstep. In an era that prized tall, imposing men, Alan was constantly overlooked. But Sue Carroll, a former silent film star 7 years his senior, saw what the entire industry missed: sharp silence, piercing eyes, and a dangerous kind of charm. More than a partner, she became his image architect, adjusting studio lighting to highlight his icy blue gaze, negotiating contracts that ensured female co-stars stood on shorter platforms, and building his brand as the emotionally distant yet deeply vulnerable man. When studios turned away and depression crept in, Sue produced independent films to keep Alan's career alive. They stayed together until his death at 50, and Hollywood owed her for redefining what masculine allure could be. What do you think? Isn't it true that sometimes a woman doesn't need to stand in the spotlight, as long as she knows how to adjust it so the one she loves shines brighter? Tyrone Power was a young Hollywood heartthrob bound by studio contracts that prohibited marriage. Then came Annabella, a seasoned French star, graceful and composed at 31. He was only 25. The studio panicked, fearing her sophistication would pull him into the European art world. But Tyrone wasn't chasing rebellion. He was drawn to her depth, her grounded spirit, and the gravity in her gaze. They married in secret, endured wartime separation, and though the marriage didn't last, Annabella left a mark that never faded. She paused her career to support his, helped him adopt her daughter, and led Bond tours while he flew as a combat pilot. Annabella wasn't just a wife, she was his anchor. After their divorce, Tyrone's roles became darker, deeper, tinged with European nuance. The very thing the studio feared became the hallmark of his maturity. What do you think? Sometimes someone doesn't stay forever, but they rewrite the emotional language you didn't know you needed. Before Errol Flynn became the dashing icon of the screen, he was a broke wanderer in Paris. There, he met Lily Damita, a fading French star 5 years his senior, still radiating allure. She didn't just fall in love with him, she built him. Lily brought him to Hollywood, trained him in etiquette, fencing, and charm. Warner Brothers signed Flynn, unaware his coach was the woman sharing his bed. Behind the spotlight, they were tempestuous. Tabloids dubbed them the boxing glove honeymooners. But beneath the chaos, there was design. Lily negotiated his first profit-sharing deal, crafted his public persona, and pushed him relentlessly. The marriage ended in lawsuits and scandal, but Lily walked away with a financial victory most actresses of her time could only dream of. Errol Flynn became a legend, but never without her influence. What do you think? Can a turbulent love still be foundational, even if it ends in ashes, not applause? Spencer Tracy, a young man with a Midwestern accent and uncertain eyes, left the American Academy of Dramatic Arts with nothing but a dream. Louise Treadwell, his classmate and 3 years his senior, saw something extraordinary in him. They married in 1923 and toured together through small theater circuits. Louise wasn't just a co-star. She was his manager, his teacher, his unwavering support. When their son was diagnosed as deaf, Louise founded a special school, while Spencer found his way into the Hollywood spotlight. His career flourished at Fox and MGM, though his personal life remained turbulent. Even as he entered a long relationship with Katharine Hepburn, Louise never relinquished her backstage role, the anchor behind Spencer Tracy's life. What do you think? If you're the first to see someone's light, can you live in the shadow forever so they can shine? Gregory Peck, the screen's symbol of integrity, was once a struggling theater student with a kind heart and no clear path. The first to believe in him was Greta Kukkonen, a Finnish makeup artist 5 years his senior. Greta didn't just love him. She invested everything. She sold her property, revised his applications, typed his letters, and moved to Hollywood when directors like Hitchcock and Kazan came calling. While Gregory focused on his career, Greta built their home, raising children, providing stability, and shielding their family from Hollywood's chaos. They divorced after more than a decade when Gregory went public with Ingrid Bergman. Yet Gregory always referred to Greta as the one who first saw him as a man of mission, an artist with a cause. What do you think? Sometimes those who appear only at the beginning leave the most permanent mark. James Mason, with his reserved elegance and icy presence, hadn't yet found his cinematic identity when he met Pamela. 4 years older, brilliant, sharp-tongued, and completely uncompromising. Their love was never about sweetness. It was about strategy, ambition, and a shared hunger to dominate their industry on their own terms. Pamela didn't just influence James, she architected him. She chose his image, shaped his mystique, and steered his career like a producer with a personal stake. Together, they hosted wild soirees, wrote boundary-pushing scripts, and dared to live as openly as they loved. She was both muse and manager, the storm behind the stillness. And when they finally divorced, it was with the kind of explosive flair only two egos like theirs could summon. Still, James never outran her shadow. Without Pamela's fire, there would be no Mason mystique. They weren't just a couple, they were a creative machine, a force, a fire that sharpened itself through heat and friction. And although the flame dimmed, the warmth of what they built together never left the screen. What do you think? Can the fiercest kind of love also be the one that molds us most completely, even if it burns along the way? Robert Taylor was Hollywood's golden boy, immaculate, photogenic, built for romance. Barbara Stanwyck was something else entirely. 4 years older, seasoned by heartbreak, and forged in fire. Their relationship began as a PR pairing, but evolved into a hard-won intimacy that few saw behind the curtains. Barbara didn't pamper Robert. She prepared him. She pushed him to think, to analyze, to rebel against the polished image that MGM had boxed him into. Off-screen, they were a fortress. Contracts banned them from appearing in the same photos, but at home, she was his coach, his confidant, and the quiet architect of his reinvention. She taught his son how to ride, taught him how to act, and never stopped teaching him how to live with principle. She was never just a lover. She was a builder, a reformer, someone who knew that real partnership doesn't always come wrapped in roses, but in lessons, arguments, and accountability. Their marriage ended quietly, a victim of distance and diverging ideologies. But the imprint she left never faded. Taylor later said, "Barbara made me the man I never dared to imagine." What do you think? Maybe the person who seems hardest on us is actually the one preparing us to stand taller, even when they're no longer beside us. Before Humphrey Bogart became the cinematic icon of Casablanca, he was just another struggling stage actor trapped in a cycle of typecast gangster roles. Then came Mayo Methot, a tough-as-nails actress from Oregon, 6 years his senior, known for portraying fierce, no-nonsense women. They married in 1938, and tabloids quickly dubbed them the Battling Bogarts. Their love was wild, passionate, chaotic, combustible. In one infamous incident, Mayo reportedly smashed a glass over Bogart's head in a jealous rage. Yet it was Mayo who challenged him to go deeper, to find emotional layers beyond the smirk and the cigarette. She saw the man behind the myth and pushed him to become the Humphrey Bogart the world would one day adore. Their marriage ended when Lauren Bacall entered the picture, but Mayo left a mark that would never fade. Sometimes love doesn't rescue us gently. It confronts us, shatters our illusions, and forces us to evolve. What do you think? Are there people who don't stay in our lives to hold our hand, but to awaken the part of us we were too afraid to meet? George Burns was a vaudeville drifter, a performer with forgettable acts and fading hopes. Then he met Gracie Allen, a sparkling comedian with quick wit and stage command far beyond his own. He asked her to team up, and she agreed, but with one twist. She would take the spotlight, and he would play the straight man. That reversal became the foundation of one of the most beloved comedic duos in radio and television history. Behind the scenes, Gracie managed their contracts, handled the finances, and negotiated equal creative control, an almost unheard-of feat for a woman at the time. When her health declined, Gracie stepped out of the spotlight. George, already in his 60s, reinvented himself with solo acts that brought deeper humor, warmth, and wisdom. He won an Oscar at 80, always reminding audiences, "I was just the straight man. Gracie was the star." No fireworks, no fanfare, just a quiet, glowing force who lit his way. What do you think? Maybe the person who makes us shine the brightest isn't the one standing in front, but the one scripting the lines behind the curtain. Clark Gable, before he was crowned the King of Hollywood, was an awkward, struggling stage actor, often ridiculed for his looks. But Josephine Dillon, an acting teacher 17 years his senior, saw something in him. She paid for new teeth, coached him in posture, speech, and presence. Under Josephine's relentless guidance, Gable transformed, not just in appearance, but in self-belief. She didn't just shape him as a student, she invested in him as a mission of the heart. They married in 1924, at a time when Gable was unknown, and Josephine's belief was the only spotlight he had. She brought him to Hollywood, personally prepared him for auditions, taught him to own the room. As his fame grew, their bond unraveled. They divorced not long after, but Josephine never asked for alimony. She lived quietly, still holding on to Gable's earliest photos. She once said, "I don't want anything, only to know he lived the dream." What do you think? Is there any love more noble than giving your youth to lift someone and walking away with nothing but the satisfaction that they became who they were meant to be? Brynner, the first bald man to explode onto the Hollywood stage, began as a nameless barroom guitarist in New York. Virginia Gilmore, a Broadway actress 1 year older, noticed a rare energy in him. She didn't just inspire, she trained him rigorously, how to stand with purpose, how to project, how to sharpen his presence. They married in 1944. Virginia had powerful ties in the early television world, and she helped Yule land the audition for The King and I, the role that would define his career forever. As Yule's star ascended, Virginia quietly stepped back. She turned to directing, writing plays, and living out of the spotlight. But Yule never forgot. In one of his final interviews, he said, "She was the only one who ever taught me how to command not just the stage, but a life." What do you think? What kind of love chooses to be the stepping stone, not the sculpture? Is that sacrifice, or the purest form of strength? Jerry Lewis, an energetic 18-year-old with wild talent but no direction, met Patty Palmer, a 22-year-old club singer with discipline, taste, and poise. Patty didn't just love Jerry, she shaped him. From scripts to stage presence, from costume design to comedic rhythm, everything bore her touch. When Jerry partnered with Dean Martin, Patty ran the house, handled the money, shielded him from burnout. They had 6 children and what looked like a golden life. But the price of fame grew too high. Jerry became consumed by work, and they drifted apart. They divorced after 36 years, Yet Jerry always said, I was just a kid making noise. Patty turned me into an artist. What do you think? What happens when the person who builds you can no longer stay? Would you be able to let them go and still carry their lessons forever? If this video truly resonated with your heart, don't just let it fade. Take a moment to like, share your thoughts or your favorite love story in the comments, and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the journeys that still lie ahead. Every like, every subscription is a small light that keeps these stories burning brighter and reaching farther. In a world where the spotlight shines the brightest, these love stories weren't fairy tales. They were real, written with tears, devotion, and quiet strength. Stay with us, because the next chapters of love are waiting to be told.